They threw my coat on the floor and told me to leave through the kitchen. Said I was ruining the restaurant's atmosphere. Over 200 guests watched. Dozens of phones recorded everything. There was one thing they didn't know. I was the man about to acquire their restaurant for $40 million, and the unsigned contract was sitting right there in my pocket. If you enjoy stories like this, hit that subscribe button. Now, let's begin. I've walked into 1,000 restaurants in my lifetime. After 40 years, I learned to read a room before anyone speaks a word. The moment I stepped into the Gilded Vine, I knew exactly what kind of place this was. Crystal chandeliers, staff moving like Broadway performers. Everything calculated to perfection, a place that sold atmosphere. The food came second. The young hostess asked if I had a reservation. I gave my name, Mercer. Her eyebrows lifted. There was a note on my reservation, she said, and disappeared into the back. She returned with a man in a tailored charcoal suit, Preston Clark, the owner. His smile was the kind you practice in a mirror. He leaned close. Tonight was their VIP preview, he explained. Investors, press, influencers, they had a certain image to maintain. I glanced at my tweed jacket, 15 years old, comfortable, apparently not expensive enough. I told him I'd prefer to stay. His eyes hardened briefly. He said they had one table available, near the kitchen, a bit noisy. I told him that was fine. The hostess led me through the dining room. Eyes glanced my way, then dismissed me. Old man, wrong clothes, doesn't belong. Table 7 sat in the corner, half hidden behind a service station. The kitchen door swung open constantly, releasing heat and noise. The table they give when they want you gone. I sat down and pulled out my leather notebook. Let's see what you're really made of, Mr. Clark. The waiter arrived 12 minutes later. I ordered the tasting menu. He glanced at my jacket and mentioned it was $285. Just so I was aware. 20 minutes passed. No bread, no water. Tables around me received perfect service while I became invisible. They were hoping I'd leave. I didn't. Then I heard her voice. Preston, who is that? A woman in a red dress approached like she discovered a stain on her carpet. Victoria Clark, the wife. Preston explained I had insisted on staying. She stepped closer. This was an important night, she said. My presence was distracting from their atmosphere. There was a diner 2 blocks down. Much more my speed. I told her I'd stay. Her eyes flashed. She told Preston to handle this. He dropped a napkin on my table, and said he was going to have to ask me to leave. I was disrupting their event. The room grew quiet. Phones appeared, recording. Preston grabbed my notebook and flipped through pages. Sterling Hospitality Group, acquisition terms. His face went pale, then red. He accused me of spying for the buyer. He still didn't understand. He called for security. 2 large men appeared. Victoria grabbed my coat from the chair and threw it on the floor. She told me to get out, through the kitchen. I'd embarrassed them enough. I stood slowly, picked up my coat, brushed it off. I looked at them and said they had no idea what they'd just done. Preston laughed. What was I going to do? Write a bad Yelp review? I walked toward the kitchen. A young dishwasher, maybe 19, held the door open. He whispered that he was sorry. They shouldn't have done that. I asked his name. Tyler, he said. I gave him a card with just a phone number. Told him to call tomorrow. I stepped into the alley. Cold air hit my face. Time to make a phone call. Gregory answered before the second ring. I told him to pull the acquisition. Silence. He reminded me it was $40 million. 6 months of work. I told him to kill it. He asked what happened. I looked at the footprint on my coat sleeve. I told him they showed me who they are, and I believed them. One more thing, I said. Release the footage. Make sure everyone knows who Harold Mercer is. He asked if I was breaking 40 years of anonymity over this. I told him some things matter more than privacy. I walked to a small taco truck I'd noticed earlier. The owner, a woman named Rosa, handed me 2 carnitas tacos. She said these were the best tacos in Portland. Her grandmother's recipe. 32 years she'd been doing this. Maybe someday she'd have a real restaurant. I gave her a card, told her to call next week, asked for Gregory, tell him Harold sent her. I finished my tacos and walked into the night. Enjoy your party, it's the last one you'll ever have. 6 o'clock the next morning, Preston's phone exploded with notifications. Restaurant owners humiliate mystery diner, turns out he's a billionaire. Sterling Hospitality Group cancels $40 million deal after owners eject company founder. The video played everywhere. Preston snatching the notebook. Victoria throwing the coat. the old man walking out with more dignity than anyone in the room. A news anchor explained that the man they ejected was Harold Mercer, founder of Sterling Hospitality Group, never photographed publicly until now. Victoria stumbled in, mascara smeared. We threw out the man who was going to sign our check. Preston's phone rang. His father. His father's voice was ice. He said he'd worked with Harold Mercer 50 years ago. Harold gave him his first real job, wrote his business school recommendation, and Preston had thrown his coat on the ground. Harold never cared about recognition, his father said. He cared about character. Something Preston apparently never learned. The line went dead. Investors pulled out. Partners canceled. Reservations vanished. Victoria asked what they were going to do. Preston had no answer. 3 days later, a black Mercedes pulled into my driveway. Preston and Victoria looked like they hadn't slept in days. They said they were wrong. They'd do anything to fix this. I told them they were experiencing consequences. That was different from change. I asked about Tyler, the young dishwasher who held the door for me. Preston didn't remember him. I told them they'd fired him the next morning for fraternizing with an unwanted guest. He was working for me now, head of trainee programs in Seattle. I told them they didn't understand what they lost. Not money, not reputation, the chance to be the kind of people worth investing in. Preston asked if there was anything they could do. I told them about Rosa, the taco truck, 32 years of honest work. She was opening a restaurant next month with my backing. She needed people who knew kitchen work, real work, dishes, prep, mopping, minimum wage. Victoria's jaw dropped. Work for a taco lady? I told them I wanted them to remember what this industry was about. Feeding people, serving people, treating everyone who walks through the door like they matter. If they lasted 6 months, and Rosa said they'd learned something, I'd reconsider. Victoria said this was humiliating. I agreed. Yes, it was. I turned back to my roses. The door is right there. Make your choice. They didn't leave immediately. I heard them arguing by the car. Finally, they drove away. They won't do it. They'll find another shortcut. My phone buzzed. Gregory. He said they'd just called Rosa's truck. Asked if she needed help tomorrow morning. Both of them. Victoria specifically asked about dish duty. Perhaps I'd misjudged them. I told Gregory to tell Rosa to work them hard. He said she'd have them peeling potatoes at 5 in the morning. I smiled. First time in days. Rosa's restaurant, Nana's Kitchen, opened on a rainy Tuesday. No red carpet. No influencers. Just good food and open doors. I arrived at 6, a corner table with a perfect view of the kitchen. And there they were. Preston in a plain white apron, expediting orders. Hands rough, hair shorter, expensive watch gone. Victoria emerged carrying a tray. No makeup, hair pulled back. She set plates down with genuine care. She saw me and walked over. She said she hated me for the first 3 months. Hated peeling potatoes. Hated being nobody. I asked about now. She looked at her calloused hands. Now she understood why Rosa's customers came back. It wasn't the food. It was how Rosa made them feel, like they mattered. I told her that was what hospitality meant. She said they were selling the gilded vine. Everything was going into Rosa's expansion. Preston appeared with a towel over his shoulder. He spoke with the ease of someone who'd earned his place. I ordered the tasting menu. He smiled and headed to the kitchen. Victoria thanked me for not giving up on them. I told her to thank Rosa. She'd done the hard part. I opened my notebook. Final evaluation, Nana's Kitchen. Exceptional service. Authentic food. Owners who understand that dignity isn't given, it's earned. Sometimes the best investments aren't in restaurants. They're in people willing to change. A year passed. Nana's Kitchen became the most beloved restaurant in Portland. Not the fanciest. Just the one where everyone felt welcome. One evening Rosa came to my table. She asked why I'd helped her that night at the truck. I didn't even know her. I told her she reminded me why I started. Before the money, before the company, it was always about the food, about the people. She smiled. Her grandmother used to say, "The table is where strangers become family." She placed a small package on my table. A gift. Inside was a framed photograph. Me at her truck a year ago, eating tacos in my wine-stained coat. She said I looked so tired that night, but I still saw her, really saw her. I held the photograph. In 40 years of building an empire, no award had meant as much. I sat there watching the room fill with laughter. Strangers becoming family. This is what it's all about. Not the money, not the power, just this. I left a $100 tip on a $30 meal. and walked into the Portland rain. My phone buzzed. Tyler, now a general manager in Seattle. He thanked me for believing in him when no one else did. I typed back, "You earned it. Keep going." The rain fell soft against my coat. The same tweed jacket from that night. The footprint was gone, but the memory remained. Some people measure success by what they build. I measure it by what they become. I walked into the night. No cameras, no headlines, just an old man who finally understood that the best meal isn't the one you eat, it's the one you give away.